All right, here's a tweet. If you graduated in 2013 and got 400K of Nvidia stocks vested over 4 years, that's 100K a year, pretty reasonable, at least for a US salary. What would that equity be worth today if you held onto it? Can you guess? The answer is $100 million. Pretty funny, right? Just being an employee at a company for around 10 years and holding onto the stock that you might have gotten as a fresh grad can lead to such extraordinary outcome. This video is going to be about some such money lessons that took me a few years to understand, and a lot of times take you, a second to just hold back, think for a second, and then realize this might be, a better company to join, market to target if you look at the next 10 years. Let's get right into the video. Point number 1, initial package does not matter. It's the most dumb thing to look at. I have friends who started at 30K INR, today make around 80 lakhs per annum. I have friends who started at 30 LPA with me at Goldman and today make 60 LPA. Does not matter where you started. What does matter a little bit is you're in the right company and you're growing technically. You should be worried if you are in a company where you don't have solid peers to learn from, if you don't have a mentor who's technically really good. That is when I would be worried. Good initial package or, an IIT degree or a campus placement doesn't necessarily mean very big outcomes in the long run. Point number 2, everything is golden handcuffs. If you're in a job, yes, you're being paid a lot of money, but it comes at the expense of number 1, 8 hours of your day. Number 2, a lot of learning that you could have done if you were spending your time elsewhere. It's very hard to get more when you're in a full-time job. I'm saying it's very hard to context switch to learn something new, something more exciting, something that might be growing if you have to put in 8 hours elsewhere. This takes me to the third point, which is if you can defer earning as much as possible, initially spend your time learning. That could mean a bachelor's degree. That could mean a master's degree if you're getting the right one and if you have the money to spare. There's no downside of learning. You can always earn. And as I said, once you are earning, it's pretty much golden handcuffs. You're not learning anything new. You're providing value to a company and in exchange of the value, you're getting paid. But if you are looking for that next 10x outcome, it might come via learning. It might come via some other extraordinary, irrational bet that you might have to take and might not happen with a full-time job. Might. Point number 4, the initial trauma of having a package or, aggressively looking at numbers, how much is hitting your bank, goes away very quickly. After the first 5 to 7 years of your job, you have a decent bit of a nest egg compared to your annual salary. So you don't really optimize too much for cash. If you're getting 2 offers, 140, 150 LPA, money might not be the deciding factor. It might be work-life balance. It might be equity. It might be learning curve, things like these. I think it's only initially that this happens. It happened to me as well. Very clearly had options from Microsoft and Goldman was paying a little bit more. By a little bit, I mean maybe 30,000 rupees more after taxes. Yet I went with Goldman initial fancy package. In hindsight, probably should have gone for a tech company compared to a finance company. What could have been an even better bet? Maybe, an early age startup like Razorpay. It's very hard to see these things, back in 2018 when I graduated. You see all of this in hindsight. The startup that felt like a very risky bet in 2018 would have probably made me, much more money compared to a Goldman job, a Microsoft job, or, any other job. And a cog in a wheel kind of a company. I'm not saying big tech is bad. This conversation isn't going there. It's going on how it's so hard to see these things. You can only see these things in hindsight. The general learning throughout the video is going to be, at least try to take risky bets. At least try to see what's happening on the other side. Grow your horizon a bit beyond what, everyone else might be doing. Point number 5, I'll keep this one quick. Health will catch up very quickly. I've realized software development isn't the best career option if you're looking for a decent, work-life or health-life balance. The reason is sedentary lifestyle, a lot of work, a lot of times overworking, especially if you're ambitious. It's very easy to get carried away to, do more than one job or, along with your job, learn a new thing so you can get that next offer. In all of this, it's very easy to ignore your body. Here are a few things that have worked for me. I don't think the conventional go to the gym and, be very consistent with fitness has worked for me. What has worked for me is at least being close to family so food is taken care of. Finding some sort of an activity, some game that you can go and play compared to, hitting the gym, because very easy to get bored doing that, at least for, me personally. The TLDR of this point is take care of your health. This is a very bad industry to be in because we're not moving too much on a day-to-day basis. Make sure you're overcompensating all of that by taking care of your health. Next point, controversial point. You're either growing or dying as a software developer. There is usually no in the middle. This industry is changing very quickly. There are, new tools that come out every day. And if you are that person, कि नहीं, I have learned how to write a PHP project and deploy it on Hostinger, and this is the only way I build websites, very quickly this will catch up to you, and eventually in 10 years you'll realize the way that you're writing code, no one else is. So if you feel like this is happening with you, if you feel like you're becoming very actively constrained to a tech stack, that's probably the tech stack in your company right now, start to wiggle a little bit, start to explore other tech stacks. Should not matter what language you're using, as long as your computer science fundamentals are right and you're, exploring every other language here and there. If we're talking about a 10-year journey from, your 20s to your 30s, you should have touched, a lot of tech stacks. Don't be constrained to a single one. This will catch up to you very quickly. Harkirat, how do I know if I'm growing or not? Just look at open source projects. A lot of good code is open sourced already. Read through it. If you're not able to understand it, that's fine. But you at least took the step to, go out of your comfort zone. Go out of the 10 tasks that were assigned to you and look at some code base that eventually might become very comfortable. Initially, every open source code base, every alien code base is very difficult to understand. If you spend 3-4 months on it, that stack becomes very comfortable. That is what you want to aim for. You want to be very comfortable with a bunch of stacks. More specifically, you want to make sure you're not restricted to one. Next point, compounding works well, both financially, but even in your learning. If you're trying to learn a little bit of everything, most probably you're not retaining anything, versus if you're going very deep in one language, if you're building a production system, a system that's being at least used by someone and not, something that you're putting on your resume, there is a good chance that knowledge compounds. The way to make a lot of money, big money, is by having very specific knowledge in something that's needed by a lot of people who have money. It's as simple as that. Your goal should be acquiring a lot of specific knowledge, acquiring a lot of knowledge that's not easily available, and then waiting for the bulls, waiting for when there is a lot of demand of that skill in that market, and then, making a lot of money when that happens and retiring. This has been true for a lot of people, mostly in Web3. They become very good at one thing, launching a token or creating a DEX. And then when the bull comes, everyone wants to launch a token. Everyone wants to launch an NFT, and you're charging people $20,000 a day to do that. So having specific knowledge helps. And this knowledge compounds very quickly compared to, let me create a website and, put it up on my resume and have no one use it. Next point, a substantial part of your net worth eventually will be luck-based. There's no playbook here, right? The people who've been very rich usually have been people who have joined fast-growing startups early. Good example might be early Facebook employees, early Uber employees. And these are things that you cannot predict. I gave an example initially. I joined Goldman versus I should have just joined a senior startup that ended up becoming worth billions of dollars, and which was not worth a lot of money. The appreciation in stock itself would have been more than 100 years of my salary at Goldman. So these are things you can only see in hindsight, but more risk can lead to more reward. If you're that early college student right now and you're seeing that startup bet, might not be the worst bet to take. Every company will give you some bare minimum. My offer at Goldman was 1.3 lakhs. The startup offer would have been 80,000 rupees. The stock appreciation can really create a dent in your net worth. I personally couldn't have imagined, a substantial portion of my net worth becomes NFTs, something that did not even exist 2 years ago. So these are only things you are able to see in hindsight. Thankfully, some of these bets have worked out for me. And as I said, a lot of this is luck based. There's no one can predict a stock going up. If they could, they would just bet on it, right? But what is in your control though is taking risks. And I don't mean, extraordinary risks, leaving a job and not doing anything. I mean, if there is a job that's paying a little bit lesser, but has a very solid founder, has a very solid technical team working on a challenging problem that might become very big in the future, might not be the worst bet to take. Next point, whatever hyperscaled in the past might not hyperscale in the future. The best time to join Facebook was 2004. The best time to join Uber was 2012. The best time to join OpenAI was when it started. Now, if you join OpenAI, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm saying, now, Harkirat, does that mean joining OpenAI right now is not a good option? No. You still make a lot of money, but the company is already valued at some $40-50 billion. A lot of its valuation it needs to grow into. Versus if you joined the company back in 2016, it was valued at nothing. This would have been the time for you to sell some of your stock and, make a lot of money. Versus if you join right now, you will still make a lot of money, but the stock appreciation might be something you miss out on. I gave the Nvidia example initially, and this will generally be true. Okay, you will join a bunch of startups, you'll gain equity everywhere. If there's one advice I can give you, if you believe in the team, don't sell your equity almost ever, unless you have some very big event, buying a house, your marriage where you need it. Other than that, don't sell your equity. The worst thing that can happen is, okay, you were the early employee at Nvidia. You were the one who got 400K worth of stocks and you sold it at 600K to buy a house. And some other rando investor put in 400K at the same time and made over 100 million. What is the benefit of being in the company and having so much asymmetric knowledge? Okay, we're building GPUs which might be very big in the future if you just sell your stock and, not bet on the company. So I can tell you the regret of, leaving stock and a company hyperscaling is a lot. So keep that in mind if you're ever thinking of selling your stock. With that, let's move to the last point. This is generally about how money flows in a market. In the end, you have to provide value to a company and they will pay you money. It's as simple as that. You could provide software development services. You could provide something else. Doesn't matter. My point here is in software development, it's easy to get away with not providing value yet charge the company a lot. This happens a lot in big tech. You can become a very small part of a very big team and just chug along for a few years. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. That is a great thing. And if you're growing through your ranks in India or the US, you can still retire with a lot of money. But is that something that you really want to pursue? Being a cog in the wheel and not really having an on-ground impact. I'm not saying people at big tech don't have on-ground impact. I'm saying if you're aiming to be the person, ke yaar, kuch bhi karke I get in and and I don't have to do too much work and I get my 1-2 lakh rupees salary and then do other things on the side, you should do it. That is also a great path. That might not be the best path to a lot of money, but that's still a great path to some money. But if you're thinking of remaining an engineer, being an engineer, be very choosy on what company you're joining, and if given a choice, just join the technically strong team, the technically strong founder. I think in the long term, both financially, but if not financially, at least in terms of your knowledge, you will learn a lot, and eventually in career, knowledge is what translates to money. With that, let's end it. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye. Finding some sort of a sport से start करता हूँ, ठीक है?
अच्छा ठीक है समझ गया.